Hey viewers, welcome to VL Astrology once again. And today I have Sir James Braha again on my channel. And as you know, he has gifted me this book. I must tell you, this book is a treasure that I'm going to be keeping with me forever. Thank you so much, sir. And in this book, what I have just started reading, of course, I have to read it through. There are the gist of 40 years, 10,000 horoscopes. Unbelievable. I'm really surprised and amazed that
You'll
sir
you'll
has.
you'll you'll do 10,000 too by the time you're my age.
I want to reach that mark as well soon. And yes, I think it'll take another few years. And this is a very, awesome book because there are sutras, experiences, the first-hand experience of Sir. You people who are the astrologers of today, I think you guys are really lucky because you're getting everything on a platter. I'm grateful that Sir has written this book and many other books. Now behind him, there's a shelf which has all the books and all. Sir, please share your insights or whatever you want to speak on the book. And also, my audience wants to know where they can grab their copy.
Okay, so I have to tell you, one of the most bizarre things when you self-publish is that you never know when the book is going to come out. And then when it comes out, you never know how long it's going to take to get on the ebook platform. So people in America have been buying the hard copy, which is the only one that's for sale. I know I sent you a paperback,
right?
But I didn't publish that. Okay.
Right.
So the hardcover is the one that you get if you go to Amazon, but that's only going to be America, Australia, France, Germany. It's 8 or 9 countries, and that's it. I have been working for nearly a month to get this book finally, and my other books finally on ebooks for Indians on Google Play, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, and Google Play have this on ebook, not Kindle. They don't have it. Amazon has the hard copy.
Okay.
But Google Play has the other. Now, yesterday, this is about a month after the book came out, we had a book party at my house. We tried to have the book party about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there was a blizzard. In late March, there was a blizzard. So the book party was canceled. We had it yesterday. And I was, the woman who made this cover, Harmony Grace, she's a neighbor of mine, and the cover is just gorgeous. And I was talking about, it reminded me of my Brigu reading. So I had a Brigu reading, and I need to explain this because not everybody knows about the Brigu reading, especially Americans. So way back in time, Goddess Lakshmi was going to put a curse on Brigu.
Okay.
And he said, wait, stop, don't curse me, and I will get people to worship you forever. She said, how are you going to do that? So Brigu was an astrologer. This is thousands of years ago. And Brigu looked into the future and wrote down explanations, details of people's lives far, far into the future. I know it sounds bizarre, but you go, and if you're lucky enough to get a Brigu reading, you will see what was written for you thousands of years ago. Now, when I went to India in 1982, I had a book with me about India, and I was reading it on the plane, and it talked about the Brigu readings, and it said there was a Brigu center in Delhi. So I land in Delhi, and the very next day, I get in a three-wheeler. It was a three-wheel cab. Take me to this address, the Brigu Center. And somebody had told me, when you go to India, bring addresses because people have a hard time finding addresses. I don't know why. This man drove around it was extremely hot. And I had a big backpack with me, which I should have left it in the room or something. Anyway, he drove around for over an hour. He kept stopping and saying, where is this? Where is this? And finally, after about an hour now, I said, let me out. I was so frustrated, and I left. That was it. Then I left. I should have gone back, but I didn't. It's karma. So I left, and I went to Kathmandu for a couple of weeks. And I didn't get back to Delhi until I think it was December or something like that. I think I got there in September. It was a 3-month stay, and I get back and I have 2 or 3 weeks left. And the cab driver finds the Brigu Center in 5 minutes, and it says closed this month. So you have to be very fortunate to get a Brigu reading. It has to be karmic. A couple of years later, it's more than a couple of years later. This is 12 years. This is 1996. In 1996, a student of mine was in India studying with K.N. Rao. And she calls me up on the phone from India and says, James, we're going to get Brigu readings. Rao is taking us for Brigu readings. Do you want one? I said, of course. I'm going to read you it's the half page there, and it's a full page here. So it's a lot of material. Okay. And not all accurate, but I'd say 70% accurate. I'm just going to read you some of it.
Sure.
Your chart is one among millions, well-read and intelligent, mainly an intellectual, arise after the age of 48, will have his own house. First marriage was broken. Second marriage successful, a love marriage of his own choice. You are widely accepted and famous. Your father is not long lived. The second marriage is to a former friend, which I assume means from past lives. You will make international tours. Second wife can have 1 or 2 children. You are an author, nationally recognized, interested in astrology and does astrology work. A lot of intelligent writing of books. You have more than one workplace. Astrological links with Dharmastan, India. You do Krishna Puja, and Gayatri is your Ishtar. You have one brother, a detached relationship. You will do a lot of air travel. You will open an orphanage and a teaching institution for Jyotish, big in size. The orphanage was a mistranslation. Somebody else read it and said, that's not an orphanage. It's a sanstha, which is an organization, not an orphanage. But here's the point that I was getting to. You will write a very good historical book. Okay, now, this was my first book, yes. Ancient Hindu Astrology for the Modern Western Astrologers. It was the second book on Jyotish in America. The first book was Robert DeLuce in the 60s, but the book, it had the calculations, but nobody could use it to know how to do the system, So I always assumed that was my historical book. That's the book that would last. And all these others, they come and they go, But when as soon as I saw the book cover for this, I said, oh my God. Because the title of it, the sutras, and then you get inside and you see the pictures and you see the Sanskrit and you go, oh my God. So at the book party, I said, which book is the historical book? And they were both written in Saturn. The first book was Saturn Bhukti. This is the Saturn Dasha. So I'm very, very proud of this book. And people that have read it, they say one of my proofreaders said, I've read it 5 times. One of the guys who read it posted on my Facebook. He said, you saved me so many years, because this is the problem with astrology. You need astrologers to write their books at the end of their lifetime, not the beginning. That's why I revised the Ancient Hindu Astrology book, because it was written in 1986. It's almost a completely different book now.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
So they can now get it on ebook.
I want to mention few things what I have read, and please allow me. Have read just the part 1, and in that, like, the first thing that you have mentioned, which I really liked, was that most of the Western astrologers I met who were practicing Jyotisha gave gemstone recommendations, but ignored mantras and yagyas. So, which is like the basic thing. So, sir, you want to say something about your experience on this?
I'm going to say something about my experience with yagyas. I had a group that were doing yagyas when I was practicing in the 90s. And sometimes they were good, sometimes not. I mean, what I mean is sometimes the yagyas produced dramatic results and sometimes not. Recently, I have the woman I use, she was a meditator. She was an organization. She was in the Transcendental Meditation Organization. And she got together 2 groups in India that do yagyas. And I have been having the best experiences. My son quit graduate school in January, and he thought he would get a job in February or March. And he found that you have to go through lots of interviews. And after 3 months, he was so depressed that really depressed, because he thought, I'm never going to get a job. And when am I going to? And I said, relax, you just graduated. Take a break. I'll pay your bills no, I have to get a job. So I pick up the phone and I get the Marie, who organizes the yagyas. And I say, I need this yagya as soon as possible. It's a sun yagya. Don't even wait till Sunday. Start it now. On the second or third day, he calls up and he says, I got a job. Wow. I can't believe it. I got a job. And then he says, Dad, I think the yagya worked. And I said, oh my God, that's right. I got you a yagya. I completely forgot. However, he was so frustrated because he had done so well in all the interviews and not gotten a job, that he went on Reddit. He went on this website and he said, has any other people gone through this? You get all the way to the CEO and then you don't get the job? 200 people replied. They said, I've been through that a million times. One guy said, hey, if you went through that interview and you got to the top, we want to interview you. He liked that company so much that when the first company said they wanted him, he said, oh, okay, but give me 1 day, because the other company wants him. Second company, the one he liked. Then the first company says, we'll give you more money. He took the job that he wanted. And the next day, a third offer. For 3 months, nothing. And then all of a sudden. And then recently, I have a very close friend, and we Skype once a week. We were friends from the 1970s, and we Skype once a week. And he says, I'm getting these phone calls from this woman. She is pulling her hair out, going crazy. Her son is brilliant. And in the middle, and he got into a good college. In the middle of senior year, he became like a zombie. He stopped doing all his work. He wasn't going to get into college. The mother was going crazy. He was antisocial. But I told my friend didn't, he thought the yagyas were superstition. But when I told him about my son, he said, I want a yagya for this woman. He gets a yagya for the woman. And within the week, the teachers say, he's back. He's back to himself.
Wow. See the power.
So yagyas are very, very important. And the thing is, I have a sutra in the book.
Yes, sir.
The most difficult part of being an astrologer, for me, it's different for everyone. The most difficult part of being an astrologer for me is when I get a horoscope and a person is entering a terrible 20-year Venus dasha because Venus is fallen and afflicted, or a person's entering a Saturn dasha and Saturn is very, very brutal in that chart for 19. That makes me crazy. So without the yagyas, I would be lost. And it's not like, I can't know who's going to get what benefits. You never know what benefits you're going to get. This group that I have, it's not my group, it's this woman. She's got 2 groups. She went to India. She told me she went to India. She visited many groups, and she said there were several groups that she did not like. The bosses didn't treat the pundits well. There were all sorts of things, but she got 2 groups that she likes a lot, and those are the ones I use. But now I used to, in my earlier days, I kind of thought it was crazy. I thought, how are you going to lessen your karma by paying money to someone to pray? I said, you could do that, but I would also chant the mantras. The mantras, I think, because you're doing it. But I've changed my mind in my older years. As long as you get good pundits that are doing it properly. Like, I had a client the other day. For 3 years, I've been trying to convince her to use the group that I use. And she said, no, I have my own group. No, I have my own group. So yesterday I was doing, because I talked to her a lot, and I said, look, the yagyas you've gotten have been useless. Haven't you noticed they haven't helped? And she said, yes, they have. I said, well, so try this group that I'm using, you know? So she's just starting with them, but you can do your own mantras, but if you have good, because you have 7 priests praying for 3 hours a day, it's
Yes.
2-3 hours a day for 3 days is $300. For 9 days is $500. The problem is, like the other day, I saw this guy had to cancel his appointment. He said, I just don't have the money. So I looked at his horoscope and I saw he's in Mercury, Saturn, and they're within 2 degrees of each other. It's brutal. And so I said, look, you need a Mercury Yagya, but of course he doesn't have the money for that. So I said, well, pray to Vishnu, do mantras for Vishnu, and keep Wednesdays sacred. You have to do something. You have to do something because, you know. But I find that the Yagyas are very, and in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that the Yagya is an exchange. So for my son, we were chanting for the sun. Now this is really interesting too, because the sun is confidence. And when he had the Yagya and he had the interview with these other people, his confidence was so strong. They said, so what do you do? See, in the previous 3 months, he was trying to figure out, what do they want to know? What do they want to hear? So in this case, they said, so what do you think about blah, blah, blah? He says, I don't know anything about that. He just told the truth. They said, that's fine. And they went on. His confidence, that's the sun. That's the sun.
Yeah. And you've mentioned about Julian this also, you know, I was just going through that his sun is 5 degrees from Jupiter in Pisces already. So
the sun is in the 9th house.
Yeah.
In Pisces, next to Jupiter. And I'll tell you something else.
Yes.
The sun is the ruler, and he's now in the sun dasha. And I'll tell you something else. The sun is the ruler of his money house. The sun rules the 2nd house, which is money. It's in the 9th, conjunct Jupiter. Now, after he was, so the sun is the father. The sun is in the 9th house. The 9th house is the father. In my life, I never made any money until he was born. After he was born, then, and it wasn't from astrology, I never found a way to make money from astrology. People think, oh, you wrote all those books, they make all this money. It doesn't work that way. You had a big bestseller, but certainly not with Jyotish books. But anyway, after he was born, then I started making money from investments that I had never made before.
Driving
long trip. Sit in the front so I don't have an accident. Sit in the front.
I really love that part.
You would not believe. This is why I tell you what, in the 3 months when he wasn't getting a job, now he entered the sun dasha, like it was when he quit. Actually, he quit the graduate school as soon as he got in the sun dasha, because he didn't like the research. It wasn't the college, it was the research. He had to stay up till 2 a.m. every night. This was going to go on for another 2 years. But he kept saying to me, you said this was my best dasha. You said this was my best dasha. And he was, and I started thinking, oh no, is this one of these cases where I'm going to be wrong? I had also told him, when he wasn't getting a job, I had also told him, wait until April, when Jupiter gets into Pisces, the sun, which is the dasha. I said, wait until April. And I also said, look, Julian, you're not going to be working in this country. The sun is in the 9th house with the 9th ruler. You're going to get a job from a company that's overseas. It wasn't true. He got a job from a company in Miami, but guess what? A week after he gets the job, he calls me up and he says, guess what? He says, I don't have to show up anywhere. I can do my work anywhere. So he tells me, I've been dying to travel because the sun dasha is in the 9th house.
Right.
And he says, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to England and get a bed and breakfast for Airbnb for a month. Then I'll go to France for a month. Then I'll go here for a month. And evidently, a lot of people in the computer business do that. He didn't get a job overseas, but he's going to be working overseas. I thought, my God, he's going to think I'm the worst astrologer ever. I said April, which came true, and I said overseas. So and one of his friends, actually, it's interesting because they had visited a month ago for the book party that was canceled.
Mhm.
And one of the friends, he heard me saying the April. And so he said, your dad told you it would be April.
No, just
I
under.
remember a class that I took with Hart Defoe. He's an
Mhm.
astrologer, very famous in the United States. And he told a story of where, I can't remember the details, but it was something related to his wife. And he said, and
Mhm.
I thought, oh my, be, I can't be wrong on this. I've got to be right because
I know.
she's going to be married to a bad astrologer.
I
Yeah.
can very well relate to this. Oh my gosh. I have to ask something. You have mentioned about Rahu Ketu Kal Sarpa. That it's
Yeah.
from the past life, kill
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
pregnant snake. It's really beautifully put that you are saying that the person must have wasted or destroyed his potential energy in the previous life. Can you
Often
elaborate a little bit on that?
I don't like to make a big deal of this because people can get freaked out.
Okay.
That you need to be careful the way you say this. Not you,
Hmm. Hmm.
but so
Yes.
when somebody has Kalasarpa,
Hmm.
I say, okay, so you may have killed a pregnant snake. I don't take it literally, I take it symbolically. A snake is coiled up energy.
Hmm.
A pregnant snake is even more potential energy because now you're
Absolutely.
killing the mother and the baby. So you destroyed energy, potential.
Hmm.
And I say, but we don't, nobody sees the past lives, so don't take it too literally. But you may have spoiled someone else's energy. You may have had talents and didn't use them. You may have committed suicide. There may have been a suicide. That is the suicide is probably a strong likelihood, not in every case, but
Yes.
in a lot of cases. But you have to be very careful. I say it's a possibility because otherwise people, they go
Yes,
crazy.
actually. Yeah. I want to add something here. You have used that word bluffed. When we are doing a reading, if somebody says, can you tell me what happened in the past life? Actually, I don't do that. I don't do that because, I can say any story, I can cook up anything. Who's going to
Exactly.
see it? Astrologers are doing this and making money, saying that we will do your past life analysis.
And they will reap the karma. And they will
Exactly.
reap the karma for that. Listen,
Yes, sir.
with all the negativity in the world, you have to
Mm.
leave that to the gods. You do your
Exactly.
best. I mean, when you read the Braha Sutras, you
Mhm.
must have noticed that page after page after page, it addresses all kinds of issues, but in every page, the underlying theme is please do the right thing. Do the
Hmm.
right thing. Don't cheat, don't
Yes.
lie, don't say you know
Yes.
stuff when it's all over the book. This
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
this is not just for the clients. It's to
True.
protect the astrologers because let me tell you, there's lots of things you'll do when you're 20 and 30 and even 40
Excuse me.
that you won't do when you're 60 or 70 because you realize that wasn't so good that I did that. That's
Hmm.
a large part of what this book is about. Um, but the thing, when people ask the questions about the past lives, this is what I do. I say, look, first of all, those questions usually come at the end because I usually do the reading and I tell them to ask me when I'm done.
Mhm.
So I say, everything that I just told you is a result. So if I say that the career is spectacular, that's not because of what you did in this life. You were born, the minute you were born, the big career was destined. The minute you were born,
Hmm.
the terrible marriage karma was there. So
Hmm.
everything I've told you comes from the past lives. Now,
True.
I will then also say, however, the fifth house is Purva Punya,
Yes.
past life credit or debt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if the person has the seventh house ruler in the fifth house, the house of past life credit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's damaged, it's
Right.
fallen, or it's aspected by Saturn, then the Purva Punya, the specific credit or debt that must occur in this life is bad relationship because it's in the fifth house. The karma must be paid off now. It cannot wait
Okay.
any longer. On the other
Hmm.
hand, if the 10th ruler is in the fifth house, like my 10th house ruler is in the 5th house, aspected to the degree by Jupiter. All of these books, all of those books, do you think they came about because I was very hardworking in this life? No. The hard work was done in the past lives. Now,
It's true.
I had to, in this lifetime, I didn't start writing till I was 32, 33. The first book came out when I was 35. So the writing began at the age of 34. Okay. I had to learn how to write. I did not know, it wasn't easy. I had to do the work, but the result of it, because look, you get lots of people that may write good books and they don't get known. They don't get famous.
Yes.
You have actors that are talented. They don't get famous because that takes the big effects, the big negative or the big positive is coming from your past lives. When you see something in the horoscope that it's a little bit good, it's a little bit bad, it's not big either way, you can't really say much.
True.
It's the karma that is big, good or bad. That's coming from past lives because it shows up the minute you're born, like that. Yeah,
that's true. I agree.
The book is divided into seven areas. The being. So the being means it's how to be an astrologer. It's not the doing. It's the being. It's the ethics. It's the morals. It's the understanding of how to be. Okay. Yes. Part 2 is the doing, which is the biggest part of the book. It's maybe 100. There's 216 sutras. It's probably 120 sutras is the doing. And then comes Rahu and Ketu, which there's about 10 or 15 sutras on Rahu and Ketu. Then there's the upayas, the gemstones and mantras and yagyas. And then there's a section on the predictions. The one on the predictions is most interesting because it gets into Pluto's now transiting Capricorn, and we're seeing the whole world go through crazy stuff. This is Pluto in Capricorn. So that's the predictions. And then there's a section on the clients, on how to deal. What do you do when you get clients that have no interest in astrology, metaphysics, or spiritual? They're coming to you because they think they're going to hear some interesting predictions, and they don't want to know what a planet is, and they don't want to know what a house is. That is one of the hardest. It's still difficult for me, but the answer to it, and you read them in the sutras, you know, one thing is interesting. I have spoken about almost, it seems bizarre, but I've spoken about 150 or 200 sutras on YouTube, but it's not the same. The speaking of it versus the reading of it is not the same. It's just not the same. You have to read it. But in any case, when I get clients that just, you know, they don't want to, you know, as soon as you start saying, well, Mercury's afflicted, you could see they're just blank. So the problem with that is that, you know, they paid a good amount of money. They expect an hour reading and you'll be done in 10 minutes. If you can't explain the details, you'll be done in 10, 15 minutes. So what you have to do in those cases is you have to get them talking. You have to say, well, what made you come for a reading? And then they may say, oh, I was just curious. I said, well, what is your life like? What are the things that matter to you? And at some point, they will say something that's actually important to them. They don't, when they show up, they don't know they're just coming like, because they have a lot of money to spend and it's going to be fun to hear someone talk about their life. But if you say, well, so how's your career? How's your love life? Eventually you can get them to start talking, and then you're going to find out what matters to them. Right. And you find out what matters to them and you start talking about it from the horoscope. It opens up lots of details and subtleties and nuances like that. And so there's and then there's other sutras about clients. You know, some of the sutras in this book are what I call pet peeves, things that really annoy me. One of the things that really annoys me is people that study astrology, and their ascendant could either be Aries or Taurus, or their ascendant could either be Leo or Cancer. So here's the annoying thing. you say, well, if you have a Cancer ascendant, then you have a fantastic spouse and troubles with the career. If you have the other ascendant, the spouse is terrible and bad and blah, blah, blah. And they tell you, oh, yes, that one fits. But I'm still not sure, but I'm still not sure which ascendant is mine. I've been through this many times. There's nothing, there's absolutely nothing you can say. You can predict 20 different things accurately from a particular ascendant, and they'll say, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I still don't know. Once they say, but they're still not sure, you say, okay, and you stop, because there's nothing that you can say, and usually that'll have something to do with their ninth house being very bad.
Right.
So they can't get higher knowledge. So then there's the odds and the ends. There's the being, the doing, the upayas, the predictions.
Yes.
Anyway,
And you've mentioned the internet is the best, the internet is the worst.
the internet is the best and the internet is the worst. So, you can go on the internet and you can actually get some good knowledge from some of the teachers. And then you can get some real garbage. You can get some real garbage. And people think that the best way is to get lots of different opinions, but it's not. The best thing is to find someone that you can see is accurate and study with them rather than getting a million different opinions. I mean, yes, once you've gotten everything from one teacher, fine, you can go to others, but you can't mix and match. It doesn't work. But I was going to say something. I was communicating with Dennis Harness. He's an astrologist, books, and organizes the Vedic astrology conferences. And he was telling me there's people that are astrologers first and counselors second. And then there's people that, well, Dennis was a counselor before he was an astrologer. And he's written an article on his website. I haven't seen it yet, but he told me to go see it. And it's about how astrologers can really do damage. It's very easy to do damage. And that's why I say, if someone has Kala Sarpa and say, oh, you committed suicide, that's not good. You tell them you might have done this, you might have done this, you might have done that, you might have done that, because otherwise you can scare them, you can damage them. And, one of the sutras in there is about, it's called Sometimes Words Jump Out of the Mouth. That's one of the sutras. Doing the chart reading, everything is going well, and something comes out of your mouth, and as soon as you say it, you screwed up. You shouldn't have said it. And it could be that you shouldn't have said it because it's too harsh, but oftentimes it's just something that you said that's wrong, that's inaccurate. And when you're younger, you try to slide by and keep going, but it's not a good idea because they're going to hear this over and over. So you have to stop and you have to say, wait, hold on. And you have to stop and you have to clean it up. It doesn't make you look good. It's no fun, but the person will respect you for it, for cleaning it up. And then also I had this one client or a reader of my book, and he posted on Facebook and he said, just to know that even after 40 years of practice, this happens to you, to me, to James Braha, made me feel good. What it is I'll be doing a reading. Look, your readings are never going to be 100%. They're not. If they're really good, I'd say they're 70%.
Yes.
But there's always going to be. So I'll be reading a chart and I'll say something and it'll be wrong. They'll say no, and it won't be until after the reading I see something that I didn't see, which is easy because there's so many hundreds of different things. You have to tell the clients, if they're new clients. If they're new clients, I tell them right from the start, this is a blueprint, but it's not fixed in stone. If they're 20 or 23, I'll say, look, some of the things may not sound accurate, but by the time you're an adult at 30, they will be, some of them. But I have to tell them, do not expect it to be 100%. You have to take what you resonate with and you have to discard what you don't.
People like you, who have 40 years of experience, like over 25 years, I have been reading charts. Still, there are jitters that I get, before the reading starts. Or I always pray to the divine, please help me. I am not going to be doing this. You are in charge. You do whatever you have to. Say whatever you have to. I always say that. That's my small prayer.
The first teacher that I was with Santanam.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Santanam, look,
Oh,
you see this is Santanam with his young baby Srinivas.
okay.
When I was in the books, look, I
Yes,
had
it's
traveled
there.
around India for 10 weeks and I could not find anybody that I thought was good. I had some readings, but I wasn't going to study with them. 2 weeks before I was going to leave, I went to the bookstore. I started picking up all the classics, and the guy says, you're not going to learn from those books. And he calls Santanam. I think that I'm 32 at the time. Santana must have been 37 or 40. I don't know. He was not old.
Wow.
I thought I'm going to see some old man with a beard. No, I see Santanam. Santanam Santanam died in the late 1990s. He died very young.
Very young.
But Santanam translated 8 classic texts: Parashara, Horasara,
Yes.
Saravali, Ganga, 8 of them. I didn't even think anything of this. I thought, oh, so at least I think he knows what he's doing because he's, but I could see as soon as I started studying with him, this man knew what he was doing. But so this is my luck. This is my karma.
Yes.
Okay. And so it is so important who you learn from. And you have to understand something. In the same way in politics, the louder and stronger the politician speaks, the more people believe him. Not the way to do it. It's the same with astrology. You can be very famous in astrology and not really be very good.
No depth.
No depth, no morals, no ethics. It could be anything. I mean, you have to be so the internet is great. I'm actually thrilled. I've given 30 or 40 videos over the last 3-4 years. And I love the fact, I mean, people tell me I've heard all your videos and and I'm productive. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's great. But then you have on the internet,
The other side.
you know what? I don't go watching astrology videos, but the stories that I hear of what people are teaching are just mind-boggling. But I leave that to the gods, and I
Yes.
leave that to their karma. And I tell you what, to this day, when I think of my work in the first 10, 15 years and the work now, I mean, I just pray that I've done enough good karma during the latter years to overcome the mistakes or the wrong things that I said to somebody, Oh, listen, before the internet, people don't know this, but before the internet, the way that you got readings was people would call you on the phone. And if you didn't have a secretary, which I never did, you had to talk to these people. And the most fun thing in the world for them was to sit and talk with an astrologer.
Wow.
They take up your time. One of the things in the sutras about the clients is this. First of all, most people now, they just contact you by email, but occasionally you'll get someone who says, I'm interested in a reading, but I need to talk to you first. When that happens, when they say they need to talk to you first, I promise you 70% of them are not looking for a reading. They have 1 or 2 questions about their chart they want to ask, and they're not going to pay for it. And they're just, before they say, I want a reading from you, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you first.
That's
so then you talk to them and you find out they don't want a reading. They want to know some information. It's just one of the sutras to let you know what.
Free lunch.
Basically a free lunch. I've been through a lot with it. And also another thing is we are right now very close to the next Mercury retrograde. Okay.
Yes, sir.
One of the sutras is that you need to leave, don't overbook your time during the retrogrades and before the retrogrades, because you're going to get the clients who don't know their birth times, the clients whose charts aren't clear, the clients who are, all the problematic clients come out around the retrograde. And I want to say something else. I say in the book that, there's 2 shadows of the retrograde. They call the shadow of the retrograde the 2 weeks. They say the 2 weeks before Mercury stations and turns backwards. And then when Mercury turns forward, for the next 2 weeks, they call it the shadow of the retrograde. But the fact is, I would say, in my experience, just in my experience, it's 4 weeks. 4 weeks before the retrograde, your computer starts to mess up. You start to make mistakes. And then by the 3rd week before the retrograde, it gets worse. And then 2 weeks before, honestly, the worst effects occur before Mercury turns backwards, because Mercury is slowing down, and things are breaking. Then it turns retrograde. And the purpose of the retrograde for those 3 weeks when it's backwards is to go back and do the things that you have put aside. I said to my wife, I said, the book sales aren't as good as I want them to be. And I said, I think what's happening is people knew the book was coming out, but they haven't all gotten around to buying it. It's on their list of things to do. So as Mercury begins to go backwards, they start to clean up the things that they're supposed to clean up. And, I forgot I wanted to buy that book. And so people go back and they do the things that they've been putting off. But the idea that the first retrograde shadow is 2 weeks is not true. It's more like 4. It's a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. By the time Mercury turns retrograde, the worst damage has been done. Except when a person is near death, when it's near death, it's usually the retrograde occurs and it starts going backwards. And as it goes backwards and backwards and backwards during the 3 weeks, so many people that are in bad, they're near death. They've been near death for months. The retrograde will kill them. If they can make it through the retrograde and past the 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the shadow, then they're probably going to be okay for several more months. Retrogrades, but I'm saying it's only when they're in very bad condition. I was dying. I said, well, she's not going to make it through the retrograde. It's impossible, because she was, just very weaker and weaker and weaker. And I said, the retrograde, it'll be over during the retrograde. And it was. But they have to be really in bad shape, not,
Yes. So should I share the charts, sir? You want to discuss a few charts?
Well, yeah, okay.